corporation out of Birmingham, Alabama. We've been in research and development of Rife's technology since 1986, 23 years going on 24. We're based out of Birmingham, Alabama. And we're here to talk to you today about whatever you'd like to talk about. I'm going to give you a little bit of a brief history. How many of you know the background of Dr. Royal Rife from the 20s and 30s? This guy don't count. Okay, basically what Dr. Rife did in the 20s and 30s was develop a non-invasive, non-toxic way to rid the body of infectious disease, which is caused by virus, bacteria, fungus, and parasites. The second most important thing he did was first develop a microscope so that he could see these organisms and stuff in their living state, which is very important because even today, the light microscopes we have cannot see viruses in their living state, or at least only the largest. It takes an electron microscope, and you can't follow their path of how they work. It's like picking up roadkill and trying to figure out where it went, what it did, what it had, all these type things for a lifetime. But Rife was able to follow the complete life cycle of viruses and stuff and documented it on film. He and Dr. Rosenau, E.C. Rosenau, and some other people from the Mayo Clinic and other universities developed special methods to breed these guys a little bit quicker than it normally takes so that they could look at them and follow them in their life cycle. Through the microscope, combined with his beam ray device, which was all with gas plasma tubes, he was able to find what's called the resonant or the mortal oscillatory rate of each organism. And how that relates to us is we are the total sum of all our living frequencies. Every organism, every human being, every animal out there is composed of living frequencies. Red blood cells, white blood cells, T cells, tissue, brain, eyes, all matter breaks down into frequency. How many of you have heard of our genome program? Know what that is? The genome program was started many years ago to decode the human genome, to use it for medicine and hopefully come up with more cures for disease. Of course, they haven't come up with any cures in the last 50 years other than polio, Salk vaccine, and that wiped out a whole industry. So our orthodox medicine is into treatment. They want to treat you for the rest of your life rather than get rid of it, which is sad. My thing is, and y'all need to understand this, I am not against orthodox medicine. I am for better and safer treatment modalities because most all drugs have side effects. And so what we discovered through Rife technology is not only could we help the body get rid of disease, but we could also stimulate it to repair, rebuild, and maintain itself with the use of the beam ray. This is something that Rife in his lifetime didn't have time to get into. The side effects of the beam ray and this technology for our part, what we do, is actually as good, if not better, than the direct effects of what we're trying to do. So it's a plus on both sides. And I'll get into our hospital study in just a little bit. But through Rife was able to devise the basics of these methods to treat disease, get rid of it, and by 1934, he had a 100% cure rate with cancer. Now, cancer is one of the biggest things that we deal with, but we also deal with ADHD, autism, hepatitis C, anything that's caused by your vaccines or what you're vaccinated against. Also, can't even think this one, brain lock. Most any disease out there can be affected and effectively treated with a beam ray device. The one thing that no device or no drug can take into account for is us as individuals. It's one shoe fits all, but it's adjustable. There's nothing that can become immune to the beam ray. As we have drug-resistant bugs these days, staph, strep, MRSA, which are very powerful. We're powerful enough that they cannot become immune. They can change a little bit, but we can also change right along with them, which is not what a drug can do. Drugs are very specifically targeted. Either they work or they don't work. And so one of the keys to this is discovering what the frequency or motor oscillatory rate of an organism is. If you go and look at biology books and you see all the different staph and strep bugs and things that they fight in the hospitals, the main bugs in hospitals are staph and strep, E. coli, Pseudomonas, and a few others. We did a study in two major universities, one of which was University of Alabama in Birmingham, which is a big research center, where we had them culture the main bugs that cause infections in hospitals and death. And we were up to 10,000 times more effective and quicker than their best drugs. For example, in an in vitro study, if you can kill off 4 magnitude of that organism in a 24-hour period, that's considered effective. We killed off 9.9 magnitude of those organisms in less than 60 seconds. That's how effective this particular technology can be when used properly, and that's the key. We started out with a UVC, ultraviolet C, which UVC by itself is germicidal. It's FDA approved for germicidal use. Countertops, skin, things like that. The problem with UVC is that it can damage your eyes. It can burn your skin. And if you make it powerful enough to really penetrate the body, you can also cook the insides. It works really well against killing organisms, but it also is very damaging to the human body if not used properly. So what we found out from those early studies is not only would the frequencies work, but we got them published in 2 peer-reviewed journals, which is astounding. Now, we did this in 1989 and 1990. And what the study was about was to determine a UVC not using frequencies and a UVC light using the frequencies that were peculiar to each organism. The standard UVC produced the standard results, which there's just tons of medical data on. But our light, which is a little 8-watt UVC, is up to 10,000 times more effective. In the literature that we give away, the peer-reviewed journals are in here. And it's a little scientific because you have to make it scientific to go into the journals and stuff. But the results of those studies are in the stuff that we give away. So once we proved beyond a doubt that Rife's work actually worked and that we could do it, then we had to determine how can we deliver it into the human body without the damaging side effects of the UVC. And so we developed our own gas plasma tubes. We went back and looked at what Dr. Rife was doing. What gases did he use in his plasma tubes? And we replicated that, put it into ours, and tried to make it better. And we have a very high success rate for the people who follow the base protocols that we recommend. Consistency counts. The effects build up a little bit each and every time that you use the beam ray. No device and no drug is 100% every time. That includes us. A lot of things we are. A lot of things we're very consistent to get 100% results. Some of the time people will get 40 to 80 or 90% success rate, and then we can adjust the programming and what's needed for that individual person. And this is what's important, is because that while you may start out with a standard protocol that's shown across the board to work for everybody, it can also be tailor-made for you as an individual. And I've had people that I've worked with sometimes 3 to 6 months to change and alter as needed. But you don't change for the sake of changing. Because we tell everybody, for example, on our cancer protocol, this is what you do for the first 8 weeks. After 8 weeks, we'll evaluate, see where you are, what are your doctors telling you? Because we don't do any diagnostics our equipment does not do diagnostics. We depend on the client's doctors, their CAT scans, MRIs, or whatever tests they're doing, blood work and stuff, to tell us what is happening. And the reason for that is because by the time most people come to us, they've already been through orthodox medicine, what they have to offer, or most of what they have to offer. They have all their medical records and medical data. They know what they've done, they know what the results are. Generally, we're their last hope, unfortunately. But from that point forward, when their doctors start, their blood starts improving, their energy starts improving. And this may happen immediately, it may take 1 to 3 weeks. Some people may get a little bit worse before they get better. There's no set formula for it. We're all individuals. But we have, for the most common illnesses that are out there today, we have a great starting point. We're not a know-it-all. We continue to learn. I've been at this, 23 years now, and the machine continues to amaze me at the things that it does. And we're only at the top of the iceberg for this technology. And it just continues to get better. And so, I can stand up here all day long and tell you about all the people that we've helped, all the good things that it does, the engineers and the people. I'm the figurehead. I'm the guy that gets to talk about the company and help people. But let me tell you, there's a lot of good doctors and engineers. We have a very good engineering staff. Actually, he is a NASA engineer that I was able to hire away from one of the largest telecommunication companies in the world, AdTran. And when I sat down with Mr. Taylor and told him about my dreams, about this technology and everything else, he looks at me like, this boy's really out in left field here. And it is. It's one of those stories that's, man, this is too good to be true. And it's okay to be skeptical. But what I always ask everybody is be skeptical with an open mind. Let us prove it. What have we done as a company to prove that this technology of ours is valid? We've done at least 3 university studies, 2 of which were published in peer-reviewed journals. We continue. We just got in again with a major university who is using this on their football players, and it's in their clinic in a mini hospital at the university. We just got the okay. Jonah has one of their football players had a broken neck, and he's in a neck brace. And the team doctor just okayed him to come into the clinic, to set in on our presentation to the clinic and stuff, to come in and start using beam ray, because his words to the board was, he says, I don't know what it'll do for you, but I know that it won't hurt you. I have enough knowledge, I listened to what they said, I looked at their data, and so it can only help. Well, I gotta tell you, our bone heal, bone regeneration programs, our spine free, and our tissue regeneration programs will make this boy's neck heal faster and stronger than probably it was to start with, because we've seen this over and over again. We can generally cut the healing time in half, and generally it'll heal back quicker and stronger than it originally was. We're just going to blow them out of the water. Our equipment was the only equipment at the Super Bowl. We had 2 units at the Super Bowl. We're now at as of today, we're at the NFL Combine up there. One of the people that we met at the Super Bowl that was interested in our technology was the trainer for the Indianapolis Colts. Took the literature back, read the book, read our data and stuff that we supplied to him, calls up my guy and says, hey, now I'm thrilled. I really want to see this stuff in action. So we're getting breaks around from the people that matter. Our goal is to get onto every NFL team, because let me tell you, those football players can easily afford the support. And you get into the training rooms. I'll give you an example. One of the players at the Super Bowl had an injury that wasn't supposed to play. He played. Team doctors actually slept with him to make sure he did the treatments he was supposed to do and didn't go out and do things that he wasn't supposed to do. It's too bad when you got to babysit young men like that, but hey, that's serious business. So we have had a lot of opportunity. let's talk about what's in the marketplace. Goodness, we're probably not the only company out there, you think? There's a lot of fakes and frauds, unfortunately. And if you go onto the internet and type in Rife's name and you look and start reading all the stuff, look at the scientific data that's out there. The newspaper articles, the journals that publish stuff on him, that's good, solid data. Matter of fact, in one of the little books that we put out for inquiring minds based on, there's a lot of the newspaper articles, the Mayo Clinic, things that were published in Rife's time that you probably wouldn't hear about today. But also, there's a lot of people that rip off Rife's name and Rife's technology. One of the biggest sellers out there are these little boxes or contacts. You hold on to the little round cylinders, contact pads, things like that. Rife never did that. That leaves off half of the components that make Rife technology work. Gentleman, Jim Folsom, who used to sell 5 different kinds of them, Astropulse, frequency devices, is going to jail, unfortunately. He fought the FDA over it and lost. They gave him a cease and desist, and he fought it and wound up getting convicted, and it's a sad story, but you got to play by the rules and do what they say. One of the things that sets us far apart from anybody else in the Rife field is that we have what's called an FDA-approved protocol. It's an IRB, Investigational Review Board. We want to get this equipment cleared through FDA for pain relief, pain management. Because the doctors that we work with and that help us pointed out to me many years ago is that they're not going to give you a clearance to cure cancer or Hep C or herpes or any of these other things right off the bat. You're going to have to worm your way in and kind of sneak play. So our goal is, number one, pain relief, pain management is one of the easiest to get. It's also one of the least costly to do. And so we set up a 3-year hospital study in a Midwestern hospital, West Hope Memorial. Part of that, highlights of that study are in the green book that we give out, and you can see how effective we were. We blew the socks off of everything that they gave us. Migraine headaches. One of the most reported side effects is that people slept better and longer. The second was reduction in pain. Yes, ma'am.
Is it possible, though, that it will trigger a migraine headache?
Is it possible that the beam ray will trigger a migraine headache? Anything is possible, but we haven't had anybody that has migraines that's been triggered. Matter of fact, one of the first cases we got at West Holt was a nurse who would lose anywhere from 1 to 4 or 5 days a month work because of migraines. And when they would start on, she would always miss at least 1 to 2 days. And she had a migraine coming on, and the doctor said, oh, we'll just send her right over to those people doing the beam ray. Some of the doctors really didn't want us there, but the board and the hospital administrator did. So they kind of had to go along with it. It's about a 50-50 split on the medical staff as far. But now here's a case of a lady who has had migraines for 18 years, horrendous, can't sleep, and just killer pain. First day she came in and sat under the beam ray, 80% of her migraine was cleared up. She went back and told the doctors, and they said, well, sign up. The program we had set up at West Holt, we had to sign up for 6 weeks or 12 weeks. Come at least once a day, preferably twice, but at least once a day, 5 days a week. Yeah, for 6 weeks straight or 12 weeks straight.
Hours or minutes?
Oh, well, it depends on your situation. If the program was designed for you. Most of it was 60 to 90 minutes. That's about average time per session with the beam ray, unless you're battling cold or flu. It's a little bit shorter time. But average was 60 to 90 minutes. She came back the next day, and by day 3, she had absolutely no pain. At the end of 6 weeks, she was like a new lady. Actually, at the end of 2.5 weeks, she was like a new lady. but she came for the full 6 weeks. And in the 3 years that we were there, she never had one reoccurrence.
So is this running a normal Monday through Friday program or a specific?
Well, the clinic that, at the hospital there was open only Monday through Friday. So we just did it Monday through Friday.
I mean, the actual program that you're running,
I'm sorry.
the actual program on the machine that you're running?
He was wondering if you had individual protocols or whether you just had a general protocol.
No, we have individual protocols for each disease. For cancer, it's 5.5 days a week, Monday through Friday.
And
You'll
the
see
clinic
Monday
for
through
you.
Friday in there. For somebody that's battling migraines or Hep C or something, you're just doing it once or twice a day, 6 days a week, off on Sunday to start back over. The protocol is really individual for each disease, whether it's Hep C, diabetes, cold, flu, whatever.
So she wasn't a part of a group, she was doing it
Individually.
individually?
Yeah, we had 3 beam rates set up there, and they ran from 8 to 5. And so they would book the time for the clients who signed up for the clinical. Absolutely. But to answer your question, we've never had one trigger. If it did, it would probably also solve that. But the only answer I can give you is we haven't had anybody with migraines at the beam rate ever triggered that.
I can tell you though, for me, you do have one because that's what triggered migraines for me, but it doesn't mean that it didn't help them as well. So my body's highly sensitive to anything that I do to it, and so it actually triggered the fibromyalgia as well.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that it hasn't helped in other ways. And it actually, in the long run, is helping the migraines, but it did actually trigger a migraine when I was down for a couple of weeks. So.
Could you repeat the question, please?
It wasn't a question, it was a statement. She was making a statement. The 10%, which is estimated, of the population can be extremely sensitive to frequency energy medicine. I know because we had a lady that we used for quite some time as we would scale up and down in different parts of the frequency range. She would tell us what parts of the body that would affect. And there is 10%, we're just going to assume there's 10% of the population, which is actually a high count, but 10% of the population that are extremely sensitive. And if you are, then the program and the time can be adjusted for you as an individual. That's the beauty.
I stayed for 2 hours one time and it instantly threw me right in bed.
Yeah,
Like, just
that's a
because
little bit much.
Healing crisis for me immediately.
Right.
So I thought, okay, 2 hours is just a little bit too much. for my
Anybody
body.
that's sensitive, I will start them out at 30 to 45 minutes. And I'll do that for 2-3 days, depending upon the feedback of what the client gives me. And when you run across somebody like yourself that is sensitive, that's the only way you can do it.
Yeah.
It's one shoe fits
It's
all,
like an hour and a
but
half, and that's
it's
it.
adjustable for that individual.
Yeah.
We did that when we first started out with some Lyme people. We did a 90 to 120 minute session because anybody that I won't say desperate, but been in that situation for a while, we won't get well as quick as possible. But on the other hand, the healing crisis we locked them up, their joints locked up and everything else, and they could move, but they could barely move for 3 to 5 days. And once we detoxed them and everything, and then we learned, you got to cut back on this. And we learned as you go because there's no manual for this other than what we've created and learned over the last 23 years. But you adjust for you as an individual, definitely. Yes, ma'am.
I found